Ladies and gentlemen, when night comes and the body begins to settle, there is a subtle shift happening within. The mind, which has been busy navigating through noise, responsibilities, and countless impressions during the day, starts to slow down. Thoughts lose some of their weight, and the stream of inner chatter becomes softer. This slowing down is not just about rest. It is an entryway into something deeper. As the brain moves from its active, analytical state into slower rhythms, a gate begins to open. This gate leads to the part of the mind that does not argue, does not question, and does not analyze. It simply absorbs. It is here, in this delicate state between wakefulness and sleep, that true change becomes possible. Most of the time, people are unaware of this process. They collapse into bed, carrying the residue of their day. Their minds are heavy with frustration, worry, or longing, and as they drift into sleep, these imprints sink directly into the subconscious. And because the subconscious accepts without resistance, it takes in these patterns as instructions. The result is that the next morning, the person wakes up with the same emotional weight, carrying forward the same programs that defined yesterday. This is why lives can feel like repetitions, why change appears so difficult. But when there is awareness, the moment before sleep can be transformed into something sacred. Imagine lying down and recognizing that you are about to enter a place of incredible power. Instead of letting random thoughts dictate the state of your inner world, you gently guide your attention toward what you wish to plant in the deeper layers of your being. The mind in its slowing rhythm is like fertile soil. What you place into it will take root and grow, whether it is the seeds of limitation or the seeds of expansion. To step into this practice requires patience and sincerity. As you feel your body soften and your breath settle, you allow yourself to release the burdens of the day. You no longer need to carry your struggles into the night. Instead, you choose to place your awareness on the feelings you want to embody. Gratitude, peace, joy, or wholeness. These states are not distant. They can be summoned in the present moment, and as they rise, they infuse your inner field. In this way, you are no longer at the mercy of old programs. You are consciously writing new ones. This transition from wakefulness to sleep is one of the most overlooked times of the day. Yet it holds within it the possibility of transformation greater than any effort made in waking hours. For in the silence of the subconscious, the instructions you give are received without resistance. The night then becomes more than a time for physical rest. It becomes a passage where the self you are and the self you wish to become begin to meet. And if you return to this process consistently, you will find that the morning greets you with a different presence, as if life itself has shifted in subtle but undeniable ways. Each evening, as people prepare to lie down and let the body drift into sleep, most carry with them the weight of their day. Thoughts circle around familiar stories, an argument that replayed too many times in the mind, an unfinished task, the anxiety of what tomorrow might bring. These thoughts are rarely neutral. They are often colored with emotions, frustration, sadness, disappointment, or fear. What most do not realize is that by entertaining these emotions before sleep, they are rehearsing the same life they say they want to change. The mind does not rest, it loops. The body, even while lying still, continues to bathe in the chemistry of stress. And so, though the body sleeps, the patterns remain alive, preparing to be repeated when the morning comes. This repetition is why many feel caught in cycles. Days seem to mirror each other, experiences carry the same emotional tone, and despite new circumstances, the inner state feels unchanged. The past is projected onto the present, and the present is used to predict the future. In this way, people unintentionally become prisoners of their own minds. They are not living freely, but rather reliving. The bed, which could be a place of renewal, becomes instead a stage where old memories and familiar struggles are played out once more. But the truth is, this moment before sleep is not meant to be filled with worry or the residue of the day. It is meant to be a bridge, an entry into a deeper self that waits silently for direction. What we take across this bridge matters. If we cross it with the weight of unresolved thoughts, then the night deepens those grooves. If we cross it with awareness and clarity, then the night strengthens a different path. It is not about denying difficulties or pretending challenges do not exist. It is about refusing to let those difficulties be the final imprint on the mind before surrendering into stillness. When a person recognizes this, they begin to approach the night differently. Instead of asking, "What went wrong today?" or "What do I need to worry about for tomorrow?" they ask, "What state of being do I want to fall asleep in?" The answer to this question changes everything. Perhaps it is peace, perhaps gratitude, perhaps love. Whatever it may be, choosing it consciously is a quiet act of freedom. It is an act of declaring, "I am not defined by the noise of the day. I am choosing a different imprint for the night." The mind is powerful, and when directed properly, it becomes a tool for transformation rather than a trap of repetition. To practice entering sleep with new thoughts and elevated feelings is to gently break free from the cycle of rehearsing the past. Over time, this practice weakens the grip of old memories and opens the possibility for a new self to awaken. And in that awakening, life itself begins to unfold in new ways, reflecting not the weight of yesterday, but the vision of tomorrow. The mind holds a remarkable capacity. It can create experiences that feel so vivid, the body responds as though they are already real. This is the essence of visualization, and it is most powerful when practiced in the quiet moments before sleep. In this state, the thinking mind begins to loosen its grip, and imagination flows with greater ease. To visualize is not simply to see an image in the head. It is to step into the experience fully, to feel it with the senses, and to allow the body to resonate with the reality you wish to live. When this is done sincerely, the line between thought and reality becomes thin, and the seeds of transformation are planted. Most people underestimate the effect of their imagination. They believe it is something light, fleeting, or insignificant, yet science and experience both reveal its weight. The brain does not differentiate between a vividly imagined event and one that has occurred in the external world. When you picture yourself walking into a future of abundance, love, or wholeness, and when you feel those emotions with intensity, the body releases the same chemistry as if it were truly happening. The nervous system fires in new patterns and new connections begin to form. This is not daydreaming. It is rehearsing a future until it becomes familiar. To visualize effectively is to approach it with presence, not force. It is not about clinging desperately to an image or demanding that it appear. Instead, it is a gentle invitation, allowing the mind to wander into the possibility of a new life, and then resting in the feeling that such a life is already yours. For instance, if one desires peace, it is not enough to imagine a quiet lake or a serene landscape. The body must feel the stillness, the calm, the expansion that peace brings. In this way, the visualization shifts from an image to an embodied reality. As this practice deepens, the imagined future begins to leave an imprint. The subconscious accepts it as real, and the body begins to align with it. Over time, one notices subtle changes, different choices, new opportunities, a shift in perception. What once seemed distant begins to feel natural. The outer world starts to mirror the inner vision, because the self who lives that vision has already been rehearsed countless times in the mind. The key lies in repetition and sincerity. A single visualization may spark inspiration, but consistent practice shapes identity. Each night before sleep, by stepping into the future self with clarity and emotion, the individual lays another stone on the path to transformation. It is not about waiting for circumstances to change first. It is about becoming the change internally so that the circumstances have no choice but to reflect it. When imagination is used consciously, it ceases to be fantasy. It becomes creation. And when practiced in the sacred space before sleep, visualization transforms into a bridge between who we are now and who we are becoming, guiding us gently into a future we have already begun to live within. When a feeling is deeply experienced, it carries a power that thoughts alone cannot reach. A thought may touch the mind, but a feeling touches both mind and body. It moves through the nervous system, shapes the chemistry within, and imprints itself on the subconscious. This is why the moments before sleep are so significant. In this state of openness, when the conscious mind has loosened its grip, emotions become the language through which instructions are written into the deeper layers of being. If one drifts into sleep filled with anger or worry, the body continues to rehearse those emotions through the night. But if one rests in gratitude, love, or a sense of wholeness, the subconscious accepts these feelings as truth and carries them forward into the new day. Most people believe that feelings arise only from circumstances, that one must wait for life to deliver something in order to feel joy, safety, or abundance. But the practice of embodying elevated emotions before sleep breaks this cycle. It shows that emotions can be summoned from within, independent of outer conditions. To feel gratitude as if the desire has already been fulfilled is to teach the body a new way of being. To feel love without needing an object is to awaken a sense of wholeness that is not dependent on another person. These states are not illusions. They are experiences that reshape the inner world, and with time, the outer world adjusts to match them. The body does not question the source of the emotion, it simply responds. If the heart beats faster from fear, chemicals are released and the body prepares for danger, even if no danger exists outside. In the same way, when one fills the body with feelings of appreciation, joy, or calm, the chemistry of well-being flows, strengthening the immune system, softening tension, and aligning the mind with harmony. The body cannot distinguish whether the source is an actual event or a chosen internal state. This is the great power of conscious feeling. It bypasses circumstance and moves directly into transformation. To practice this before sleep requires nothing more than presence. Lying in bed, one closes the eyes and turns awareness inward. Instead of replaying the day's difficulties, attention is guided toward what one wishes to embody. At first, it may feel subtle, perhaps even forced, as if the body resists. But with patience, the emotion begins to grow. Gratitude expands like a gentle warmth through the chest. Love radiates as a softness in the breath. Wholeness feels like the settling of all inner conflict. The body begins to accept these feelings as natural, and in doing so, they sink deeply into the subconscious where change is initiated. Over time, this nightly ritual reshapes identity. Each morning does not feel like a continuation of the last, but like a new beginning. The self awakens not carrying the heavy emotions of the past, but infused with the elevated feelings cultivated the night before. This is how a new way of being is born, not by waiting for life to shift, but by shifting the inner state first, allowing reality to follow. Transformation does not arrive in a single moment of effort. It is not born out of one night of clarity or one fleeting meditation. Real change requires a steady rhythm, a repeated return to the practice until the new way of being is no longer just an idea, but a natural expression of the self? This is why consistency is so essential. Each evening, when a person chooses to rehearse a vision of their future self before sleep, they are laying down new pathways in the mind and body. These pathways, like trails carved through a forest, become clearer and stronger the more they are walked. At first, the mind resists. The body clings to its familiar states because they feel safe, even if they are uncomfortable. Old emotions rise quickly: doubt, impatience, frustration, and whisper that nothing is changing. But this is simply the echo of the past, the weight of patterns that have been repeated countless times. If one surrenders too soon, the old ways remain in place. But if one persists, returning again and again to the chosen practice, something subtle begins to shift. The brain fires in new sequences. The body learns to feel new emotions. The subconscious begins to accept the rehearsal as reality. Each repetition is not wasted, even if it feels small. Just as water slowly wears down stone, each nightly practice etches itself into the nervous system. Over time, the body no longer waits for external events to trigger emotions of peace or joy. It begins to live in them naturally. This is the moment when the self has been reconditioned, when the future self imagined each night becomes the present self who wakes in the morning. It is not about pretending or forcing, it is about becoming. Consistency also builds trust within. Each night of practice is an act of commitment to oneself, a declaration that growth is more important than comfort. This commitment creates momentum, and momentum creates transformation. The self that once struggled to believe now feels more certain, more aligned. The practice is no longer an effort, but a way of living. What was once unfamiliar becomes familiar, and what was once a distant vision begins to feel inevitable. This is why discipline is not something harsh or rigid. It is an expression of devotion, to show up each night, even when tired, even when doubtful, is to plant seeds that will one day bloom. And just as a farmer does not dig up the soil each morning to see if the seed has sprouted, so too must one trust the process, allowing time and patience to work. Through repetition and sincerity, the old self gradually fades. The identity shaped by the past loses its grip, replaced by a self who has rehearsed wholeness, abundance, or joy so many times that it has become truth. And when this happens, the outer world cannot help but reflect the inner transformation, for life always bends to the being who lives with consistency and intention. So many people wait for life to change before they allow themselves to feel different. They wait for the job to arrive before they feel successful, for the relationship to appear before they feel loved, for the circumstances to shift before they feel safe or whole. In this way, their inner world is constantly dependent on the outer world. They live in reaction, and their emotions are chained to conditions. The tragedy in this waiting is that it gives all power to the external, while the truth is that transformation always begins from within. The future is not something distant that arrives by chance. It is something shaped and summoned by the way one chooses to think and feel now. To embody gratitude, love, or joy before any visible evidence appears is to step outside the cycle of waiting and into the field of creation. The night just before sleep offers a sacred opportunity for this shift. In that quiet space, one is no longer distracted by the demands of the day. The conscious mind softens, and what is impressed upon the subconscious takes root. If a person chooses to fall asleep rehearsing lack, fear, or disappointment, that is the future they continue to feed. But if they choose to rest in the feelings of wholeness or abundance, they are no longer waiting, they are creating. Creation in this sense does not mean forcing or controlling outcomes. It means aligning the inner state with the life one wishes to live. When the mind and body are filled with the emotions of the future self, the message is clear. This reality is not something I am hoping for. It is something I am already living. The body, unable to distinguish between imagination and physical experience, begins to respond as though the new life is already true. Over time, the outer reality bends to match the inner one, for life always reflects the state of consciousness that gives it energy. This is why waiting is a trap. It delays transformation by insisting that something outside must happen first. But when the inner shift occurs, waiting is no longer necessary. The joy, the peace, the gratitude are already alive within, independent of external proof. And because these states are consistent, the self who wakes in the morning carries them into the day. Actions flow differently, perceptions shift, and opportunities that once went unnoticed begin to appear. The future has already been created internally, and the external world simply catches up. To live this way is to recognize that each night before sleep is not an ending, but a beginning. It is the moment where the old patterns can be released and a new self rehearsed. By choosing elevated emotions instead of recycled memories, one stops being a victim of circumstance and becomes the author of destiny. The future is no longer something waited for with uncertainty. It is something lived now in thought, in feeling, and in being. And when this is done with devotion, life awakens as a reflection of that inner choice, bringing forth a reality that once seemed unimaginable.